Well, hello there. My name is Mark Miles, and I love helping trainers, presenters, workshop facilitators really take their results to the next level. And I've been in the training industry for the last 10 years, and I really loved every moment of the face to face delivery aspect of training. I've loved it. I've loved it. But as we all know, there was a huge world shift that happened, and that was called a bit of a pandemic, so called pandemic, whatever it really shifted the amount of face-to-face training that actually occurred towards the online environment. And trainers and workshop facilitators really smashed with a brand new reality that if they wanted to be good or if they wanted to be great, they had to suddenly realize or make the shift to go, okay, I'm great in the face-to-face, but how do I successfully transition over and be equally as great in the online environment as well? And we saw a lot of the gurus that were typically running, seminars have to shift over to the online environment and run events through Zoom or other, networks or, technologies to get their message out there when people couldn't attend live events. And in today's video, I want to share with you some simple strategies that you can use in order to really successfully transition over. Now, this video was actually birthed out of a conversation I was having with a colleague of mine who was saying, okay, I've been doing face to face for so long, but this online thing, it's brand new. I'm really fumbling around here. And how do I create that engaging experience for my learners? And I thought, yeah, it's a great question. And I see more and more people struggling with this question. How do I create engagement? And I've done other videos around this, but in today's video, I want to really speak to the people that are making that transition and may have some fear or concerns around how to do that, and a couple of mindset beliefs and also some strategies that you can use. So let's get into it. Grab a pen, get ready to write. So the first thing I really want to encourage you to do is to believe that you can own the experience, that you are creating the experience for your learners, for your audience. Whether you're a corporate speaker, whether you are whatever it may be, when you are delivering a session online, you are creating an experience. Just like when you are in a face-to-face environment and you're getting people to interact and put up their hands and all of that kind of stuff, you're creating an experience. And in the online world, you need to adopt the mentality and take ownership or responsibility. It's like, all right, engagement, it's my responsibility to actually create it. All right. So as an adjunct to that, I highly recommend, as my very first tip, to set the ground rules or set the rules of engagement. So number one could be, all right, rule of engagement. When you're at the event, you've got your video on. If you're an audience member, your video is on. That's one of the rules of engagement. Another rule of engagement could be when you're in the session, you are on mute unless you are sharing or speaking. Another rule of engagement is if you're going to step away, put a message in the chat box and let me know that you're okay and that nothing's gone wrong. And those kind of simple rules of engagement or ways to play the game are going to instill a level of expectation on how the session's going to be run and how the experience is going to go. And you can have lots and lots of different rules of engagement, so to speak, that you define that you think are important. All right. Now, once you've set those rules, then let's get into the whole concepts around building engagement. Because a lot of people go, it's online, I can't build engagement like I do in the face-to-face environment. And what we need to realize is that, yes, there are limitations to what you can actually do in the online environment, practical wise, there's some limitations. But at the same time, equally, there's some tools that you can implement and use and deploy that are going to create that engagement as well. One of my absolute favorites is the whiteboard. All right. So inside Zoom, you're going to find a whiteboard, or inside most technologies out there that you run online training on, there's going to be the whiteboard function on there. And you can use that whiteboard to pretty much create discussions, do discussions, put up notes, and you can get people to contribute in the chat box. You put comments on the whiteboard, and it's an amazing tool. And you can even leave things on the whiteboard and come back and complete them later. But the whiteboard, greatest tool that you're going to find, right? Just like in the face-to-face environment, you're going to be using that whiteboard or you're going to be using a flip chart. So why don't you use the whiteboard that's inside Zoom? Highly recommend that you play with it. and use it in collaboration with the chat box. That leads to the next one, which is your slides, your PowerPoint. What we need to appreciate is just like face to face with death by PowerPoint happens because people can read it and they don't need you. What I mean by that is essentially engagement is actually created by a sense of anticipation and a sense of wonder and a sense of suspense. So if someone's sitting there and they're wondering what's going to happen next, they're going to be engaged. If people are sitting there and they're experiencing constant change in the learning experience and learning environment, then they are going to be engaged, right? So we need to realize that if we want to create that engagement, that attention, we need to make sure our PowerPoints actually elicit that feeling in our audience. So how do we do that? PowerPoint. Put some blanks on it, all right? So don't put in all of the information. Just put in a couple of words. And as people are looking at your PowerPoints, they're going to be wondering, what's going to come next? What's the trainer going to say? What's the facilitator going to say? What's the facilitator going to make us do next, right? So essentially your PowerPoints, take away all the information you've got, be very strategic with what you put on that PowerPoint, and create some blanks on there so that people are guessing and wondering. It's going to be one of the most powerful strategies you use because it transforms the I'm going to dribble on you and I'm just going to speak to you, as opposed to I'm going to invite you into the conversation and I'm going to make you part of the learning experience, right? Audiences and adults and learners, so to speak, want to be part of the learning journey. They don't want to just be dumped upon, so to speak. And that's often what happens in the death by PowerPoint situation, right? People are experiencing the dump on as opposed to being invited into the experience, right? So next one, chat box. Chat box, chat box, chat box, chat box, chat box. I can't say it enough. Professionals are very good, online facilitators are very good at using the chat box and milking the chat box to get responses from their audience, right? So if you hear any of the great master trainers out there, they're constantly eliciting response in the chat box. And that might sound like, all right, everyone, type in the chat box one word, how are you feeling today? Drop in the chat box, let me know how you're feeling today, right? Another one could be, all right, we've just covered XYZ topic. Type XYZ in the chat box, all right? Or we've just covered the importance of engagement. Everyone type the word engagement into the chat box. Engagement, drop it in there, folks. Or it could be, type a yes in the chat box if you've been to France. Type a yes in the chat box if you've been to France, right? Could be anything at all. But your ability to create questions and then elicit response in that chat box really makes you masterful because you are really engaging with the audience. And logistically, as we know, the more people you have in an online experience or online environment, the harder it is for people to actually respond, like unmute themselves and say, yes, hello, hello. And the harder it is, right? And the more people you've got there, the harder it is to direct questions. But the chat box, make it your best friend, right? And great presenters will say, all right, type the letter E into the chat box for engagement. Now, side note, that's a great one for people that have struggled with spelling or even long words, right? So you can just drop in the first letter of the concept that you want people to remember, all right? So other key phrases that you want to get used to using in the online environment: if you can see my screen, type a yes in the chat box. All right. If that makes sense, type yes in the chat box. If you can hear the video, type yes in the chat box. If you can hear me and see me, type yes in the chat box. Or another version of that is, if you can hear me and see me, give me 2 thumbs up, right? It's another great way to build interaction in the beginning of a session. But what you want to be doing is constantly asking questions, getting response in the chat box. And that will become your best friend. And the more you get people used to responding in that chat box, the more they're going to feel part of the session and know that their involvement matters. Their involvement matters, all right? Now, next one. Breakout rooms, another one that you really need to make your best friend. So we had the whiteboard, we had the chat box. Now let's get into the breakout rooms. Breakout rooms are fantastic, and professionals are extremely good at using them. Right? It's just part of their repertoire and what they do. So get used to using breakout rooms. Get used to actually assigning people, and the secret sauce is to make sure that as much as possible, you're actually changing it up. As much as possible, you send them into a breakout room with different people every single time. And as a result of that, people are going to go, wow, this is different. Wow, I'm with different people. Wow. And there's going to be constant sense of change and alterations in the learning experience. So if you constantly put people in the breakout rooms, great, good on you, mate. But if you don't change it up with the different people, then you're kind of missing the secret sauce there. And change creates the engagement. Change is your best friend, right? So a big part of that is how can you create the variety that then keeps people hooked and wondering how's it going to happen next. All right. Now, next final thing I'm just going to mention is the core belief around training, presenting, facilitating online. And that is the following: no one gets left behind. No one gets left behind. No one gets left behind. And what I mean by this is in the online environment, it's so critical that everybody feels safe. It's so critical that everybody keeps up. It's so critical that everybody feels part of the team. And the more that you can have the belief that no one gets left behind, everybody's going to feel like they're part of the experience. Now, here's the thing: you could show up, throw up, and deliver your PowerPoints. Sure, you could do that, right? But that would be an amateurish thing to do. That would be kind of like novice online presentation, right? But the real professional, the master trainer, master deliverer, they go, cool. We are all here. We're all going to learn something. We're all going to be part of the experience, and we're going to make sure that no one gets left behind. Because at the end of the day, people can check out of your learning experience so easily. They can literally turn off their video, go and do something else, right? And you've lost them. And as soon as someone thinks that they don't need to participate or they don't need to respond in the chat box, you're going to lose them. And there's going to be then an after effect from that. And other people will go, oh, I don't need to be here either. Or I've got other things I could do. And when you allow exceptions to the rules, then people become that. And they start to go, oh, yeah, doesn't matter, not so important. But it's the glue that holds everyone together, is the belief that no one gets left behind. And when you adopt that belief when you're online presenting, you are going to be so much more dynamic, so much more engaging, and you're going to keep everybody together. And everything that you're trying to teach, equip, and empower people with, it's going to stick with them. And there's going to be a personal commitment. All right. So the belief is no one gets left behind, and no matter what, you're going to do what you can to support people. All right. So let's just recap. Yes, in the face-to-face environment, you could be amazing. Great, wonderful. Now let's take your skills to the online environment and be equally amazing. So, as I said, definitely set those ground rules. Definitely set the expectations. How you want to play the game, how you want the game played, right? Set those ground rules. If you're here, be on mute and have your camera on. Whatever you think is appropriate. One person shares at a time. Number 3, responses in the chat box, or whatever rules that you want to set, right? If people are going to step away, drop a message in the chat box and let me know that you're okay, right? Next one, use the whiteboard and use it regularly, right? And be a master at bringing up that whiteboard and transitioning to the whiteboard, between your whiteboard, your PowerPoints, your videos, whatever it may be, right? Be a professional and know how to do it. Next, blanks on slides. If you're using PowerPoint, know that in order to create engagement, you need to make your PowerPoints engaging, all right? Have blanks on the slides, have images, and have questions that create anticipation, wonder, and elicit a new sense of curiosity. Next, chat box, chat box, chat box, chat box, chat box. I'll say it 1,000 times if I need to, but professionals in the online environment are extremely good at getting responses in that chat box, right? Be comfortable asking the main questions. If you can see my screen, type yes in the chat box. If you've been to Paris, type yes. And I keep using that example, but essentially it's a great example of just a closed question. If you've ever Being worried about having an accident at work, type yes in the chat box. Could be anything at all, but get good at asking quality questions to your audience. Next one, breakout rooms. Get used to using them, get good at using them. And also, just a side tip, don't put people in breakout rooms too long because time is experienced differently in a breakout room, and that's a topic for another video. But at the end of the day, the belief is no one gets left behind. No one gets left behind. All right, folks, you got some value from the video. Hopefully you did. Like, comment, share. Let's get this message out there. But folks, the transition, at the end of the day, it's not as scary as you think, but it does take practice, it does take commitment, and it does take a little bit of rehearsal and playing around with things. And that was my journey as well. Before I got into the online space, I looked at YouTube videos. I looked up how to do things. I played with the functions of the features. And yes, there were a lot of mistakes along the way. Yes, a lot of embarrassing moments. But now, I'm pretty good at it. And another big part of it was I looked at other masterful trainers, presenters out there, the Anthony Robbins of the world, and, and the people that were so good at it. I looked at, okay, what are they doing? How are they doing it? And what are some commonalities across the masters of this world and this realm of online training? So thanks so much for watching, team. I hope you got some value. Thanks always for supporting the channel. And let's get this message out there and let's really help people that are making that transition from the face-to-face world to the online world. And maybe even some of you are going the other way as well, going back to face-to-face, and you're experiencing that transition as well. Thanks so much for watching, team, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.